welcome to all our friends and viewers from around the world for a new episode of AWA Agora's Talk Show. We are in our season 3, episode 6. My name is Abhay Wadhwa. I'm your host here, based in New York City. It's a beautiful sunny day outside, and today we have a special guest whose work I've admired for many years and whose approach to architecture and how it can be practiced in South Asia, in India, has been pretty instrumental in getting the profession fine-tuned on how we can build in a design studio, as the title says, a design studio, but in a corporate paradigm. So please join me in welcoming our guest, Arunjot Singh Bhalla. Call him Arun, for those of us who know him. And we are really thrilled to have him. And, it's really thrilling to see that a small talk show hosted, in our work from home, work from office, partial work from office scenario has received such great feedback. And all we're doing is basically having conversations with thinkers, innovators, pioneers, and many of them we are fortunate to say are our friends. In a line of seriously notable professionals, we today have Arun joining us. He is the managing director of RSP India. And please join me in welcoming him to our discussion today. It's going to be super exciting. So put on your seatbelts and let's get ready to have it talk with Arun. Arun, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hey, Abhay, and what a pleasure. First of all, I must congratulate you on this such a wonderful initiative. I've known you professionally and we have worked together, but every time you surprised me, you came up with this wonderful idea. I was not aware of it, and it sounds so good. So great to be here, and thank you.
Arun, I've always enjoyed interacting with you, and I'm really glad that we are able to meet in these COVID times through this kind of a forum, because the thing that the guests should know is that in preparation for each talk, we spend time discussing the topic with the speakers so we can make it super relevant to our target audience, our people who come to our shows all the time. We have many regulars, and then of course those of us who can't make it, they watch it on YouTube. So Arun, I wanted to start with, I know you have slides to show and you have beautiful work to share with all of us, but I did want to start with a little bit of a personal note or personal journey of how it has been for you. I know you are a graduate of the Chandigarh College of Architecture, which is Le Corbusier's city. And I would love to hear from you more on how your journey has been, through your professional life, through your student life and your professional life, your journeys around the world, etc. Mm-hmm.
So we embark on a career sometimes fully knowing what it is going to entail and sometimes not knowing at all. Right. In my case, it was a deep dive into a profession that I was not very well aware of. But luckily, Chandigarh is a city which built by Corbusier, designed by Corbusier, becomes kind of an incubator. And going to that school was an amazing experience. So 5 years in Chandigarh, imbibing all the modernism in and around you, literally living in a city designed by the master. Right. But then it sometimes makes you reflect as to this is what you want to do in life and what you want to do after you graduate. And my choice then became that I wanted to go away from it, go away a little bit and see what other options can be. And so I studied and found out that there is this architect, Mr. Romik Khosla, and his practice, Group India, appealed to me a lot. I applied to them. They had some great work. And the reason was it was like a counterpoint to the straight lines of what Corbusier was has done, at least in and around Chandigarh, that exposed concrete, exposed brick kind of medium, to a practice which had some refreshing ideas. And it became a journey of another learning set for me working with under the mentorship of Mr. Romi. Great learning experience. And then the next then port of call for me became to hone my skills further. So I had got a good understanding of how buildings are put together in the Indian context, and I can tell you sometimes it's a little bit more difficult than in some other contexts. But having learned that, I thought I should further hone my skills. So I applied for graduate school and was lucky to be accepted by MIT in the US. So 2 years there. But I was always coming back to what I would call home, and that's India for me. So I had a little bit of a stint in Singapore. We all have student loans that we need to take care of, and it's better that you have a job. Architects struggle with that. I'm sure some in the audience would know that as you set off as a student, your money is always an issue. So, so I left the shores of US and was then came to Singapore to try my luck there. But I was very clear. I wanted to be in a practice which would then have projects in India. And I joined RSP. So now that's like 28 years now working with the same company. So 3 years in Singapore. And then along with another mentor of mine, we were charged with moving to India and setting up the India office with a very interesting project, the first IT park in the country. So that's a short synopsis. And of course, there are a lot of turbulences on the way and a lot of confusion. We all go through, am I in the right profession? Am I doing the right thing? Right. Slowly comes. And I think if it comes slowly, it's always better than straight on. I didn't have clarity on every step, but the large picture was there in my mind.
So your foray back into India was, you went to Cambridge, MIT, then you jumped to Singapore, and there you were working with RSP, and then you had this amazing project called the ITPL, right? The first IT park. This is in Bangalore before the boom, the IT boom in Bangalore, right? It was just about starting, was it? That's when you were kind of coming in.
So you're absolutely right. So what happens is that, and luck and destiny, as we look back on our careers, we will always find that these are important parameters as well. If one can plan all one wants, but the chips have to fall in the right place. So for me, landing in Singapore, getting hired by RSP on a project because I wanted India projects in the city of Bangalore, and I must say, unbeatable weather. And you've been here, Abhay, and probably the best, most cosmopolitan city to be in. So it became a kind of a blessing. So, and this project on which I could work and be part of the design team in Singapore is an amazing project. It was a technology transfer project as one focus, a collaboration between the governments of Singapore and India to bring something new, something refreshing in the IT space. And it completely spawned a city in the sense that Whitefield, which was a far removed suburb of Bangalore, right, got off after that. Once the project got done and became a growth magnet in that part of the city, and other IT companies came in. So that way it all worked out, and it spurred us on to then add more numbers, set up an office in India, and so on. And the journey in India then started.
It's really interesting. You said something about destiny and how the chips fall, right? That you came to India, to Bangalore specifically, at a time when, nobody had really heard of Bangalore outside, they knew Bombay, they knew Delhi, and you come to the United States and it's like, where's Bangalore? It's in the South. Okay. And then 10 years later, right, everybody was talking only about Bangalore because all the big IT companies were now based in Bangalore and doing a lot of production work there, etc. So there's this whole beautiful aspect of destiny, timing, being in the right city, having this beautiful project called the ITPL, right? And as I was doing a retrospective of your work, one of the things that stood out for me was how you were able to keep understanding the corporate paradigm, right? I mean, you're designing corporate offices, not ashrams, so it's totally different typology. That understanding that you were able to still keep the context, the climate, and biophilia, right? And this is, I'm talking about, in my understanding at least, that I'm talking about something that wasn't mainstream as a buzzword, and you were just about at the pioneering end of getting that introduced into corporate architecture. And I would love for you to show us some of your work on that, but if you can share your thoughts on it, I would love to hear more on, and I'm sure our guests would too, on how that journey evolved there. I mean, how did you connect with the fact that, listen, it's still got to be a design studio, you know?
Yeah.
And yes, it's a corporate paradigm. So over to you. Yeah. Mhm.
Question, and before I ask or request yourselves, let's start sharing slides. But let me just back up a little bit. Friends, when friends heard my plan, in the sense that here I am working in India, and then I get an opportunity to be in the US, which they said, okay, you give up US and then you move to Singapore. What nonsense is that? And then you give up Singapore and you want to come to India. So they classify me as stupid. You're absolutely stupid. Here is an opportunity for you to be an NRI. So I said, NRI that's a non-returning Indian. I'm an RI. I'm a returning Indian. I'm getting back here. But that anecdote aside, which means people said, oh, this guy's nuts. He's crazy. And what are you going to do here? Biggest dream, like, Abhay, you made it. You sit there. That's the gold standard. So you give up the gold standard and you come back to India. But our vision was different. And again, like you mentioned, there was this large projects scenario that was in my head. And I said, I'm not going to go into the small scale. And RSP was and is a force to reckon with in Asia. And when we moved into India, it became an opportunity to grow on large projects. Now, as you talk about coming to the question, let's bring up some slides if you are okay with that, Abhay. Let's just look at the few slides.
Yes, let's do that. We love visuals. Yes.
Let's have visuals, and then we can get rid of the visuals and then keep chatting.
Then we can come back to our chat. Yeah. And a quick reminder to our audience, please feel free to pose your questions. Thank you. Back to you.
So this is a quick introduction. RSP started out, founded by a British gentleman called Mr. Raglan Squire in Singapore. 1956 got established at Raglan Squire and Partners. And then our then chairman, who became a chairman, bought it out in 1980, and it got rechristened as RSP, Architects, Planners, and Engineers in Singapore. So very, very Asia-centric offices across that belt of Vietnam, Malaysia, China as well, and then Dubai. Then it was thought that, and of course Singapore as well. So, and one outpost, which is now more or less over, which was in London, because Raglan Squire had come from London. So Raglan Squire remained involved, but more as an advisory role till he passed away. And our chairman is Dr. Albert Hong, great visionary, also a great businessman, once businessman of the year. Very rare to have architects who understand business well. So he kind of hired me, and his line to me when he hired me in Singapore was that, for all you know, one day you might and will head the practice in India, and that's how it ultimately panned out. But that's a different. 1996, exactly 25 years ago, we were established in Bangalore with this project called ITPL. As of now, there are about 400 people that we have across Pan-India, and 5 offices in India. Group-wise, we have about 1,200 people. And we do huge volumes of work in India. So Hyderabad, Mumbai, Chennai, Gurgaon, but Bangalore is our main office. So that's a small synopsis of what the company is, but let's leave that and go to this project that we are talking of, which is Tech Park project. So let's move to the next one. Yeah, so, well, this one shot of it, and a shot I like because it's the curve that I drew on otherwise straight plans. So I said, okay, let's show it from here. But quite a landmark project. It became a project which brought the first structural glazing, literally the first structural glazing into India, drywall cladding, prefab techniques, good specifications. And as I designed this with the design team in Singapore, or was part of it, as the story unfolded, became very clear that there is less of this kind of buildings in India which are focused on or planned for IT, but it worked out well. It happened, and once it happened, it was happening in a space or a place where even getting a sandwich outside of the site area was a challenge. If you did not book your sandwich in Whitefield, you would go hungry if you didn't bring your lunch. So it was in the middle of literally nowhere, and had villages all around. But just imagine, the government was putting in the roads, they were putting in the infrastructure. This heady times, and 96, 97, the project moves on. 98 gets done, and then a little dip in the economy. Now we've learned over time this global cycle of economies. And now we are going fishing around and saying we need more jobs because we have decided to set up an office here in Bangalore. And people are saying, okay, we got some small interiors. And what job are you looking for? So we got this 1.5 million odd square feet of ITPL done. And people say, okay, that's a tech park. We're not going to build any tech park right now. But what was happening was that this project was getting attention, and it was getting everyone's attention. And it, like I said, becomes a magnet in Whitefield, kind of starts spawning growth there. On the other hand, people say, hey, let me also get some shiny glass on my buildings, and let me get some great finishes on my buildings. And then let's turn to these architects who brought it. And so our work started picking up. We also started doing interiors for various software companies. Our first job was with Motorola. And then from a building perspective, we did some work with Oracle. We did a few projects for builders. And then came another break, which is the next slide. Which takes us here. And the next one, please. The next slide, please. Yeah, so it comes down here. So, and I'm not even showing you the full project. This is for SAP Labs. And I bring this in because of where you speak of biophilia. Let me tell you, those days, we don't know, and though it says here 1.4 billion square feet, 2015, what I'm showing you is phase one, which is literally about 10, 12 years before that. It says 2015 because we did 4 phases in this campus, and we continue to do work for this particular client. Now, SAP as a German company cherishes good design. And it's also, nobody was used to say, oh, let me get a LEED platinum rating, or let me get a lot of plants. But this changed the way offices were being done at that time. And that's why I put this on the table, because internal courtyard, and some of you can make out, or you can make out on the screen, it's covered. And various courtyards, and each is themed separately. There is water there to mask the sound. There is natural light coming into all the workstations in and around. To be able to modulate the lights, you have movable vertical blinds that you can move. So you are literally as if you are in a garden setting, and you're in a themed garden setting. The address is how the courtyard is done. Pictures are a little dated. If you were to go in today, it's like literally forest areas in there, and beautiful. So biophilia came in, well-being came in, the whole method of, see, in this particular building, it was ground plus 2 stories. And while I was designing it, I hit the lifts. So you couldn't find the lifts easily. You had to walk up. So if you had a problem, you could go to the lifts. Otherwise, you would walk up. Generous staircases. Go to the previous one.
Yeah.
Generous staircases, sculpturesque, enabling you to, so attractive staircases, engage with the landscape. Glass walls, where the whole idea is that inside and outside are coming in. Again, think back 15, 18 years back. Nobody was talking of this engagement of landscape from the outside to the inside. And therefore, it became an important milestone for us. So the first one was important because it kind of spawned a certain kind of building methodology and ways of doing it. This one became important as well. Now, what are we doing? We're trying to get systems in. We're trying to get good practices in. We're going to get all the things that you are all who are in the Western part of the world, or even in Singapore and the more developed nations, very familiar with, but we have come into a context where that familiarity is low. We are working with architects that we have hired, and we're trying to train them to the discipline and rigor of good documentation, great drawings, good detailing, but now using computers at high speed. So people started saying, hey, you guys are a factory, man. That's bullshit. What factory? We are a factory, but we are producing some great work here. So that's how it was rolling. And let's go to a few other slides, because that's how the story.
I'm just gonna jump in very quickly, and I think that's a definition that we all, all of us who call ourselves architects, immediately respond negatively to any connotation with this being just mass produced. No, this is all bespoken responses.
Absolutely.
Just because you're able to pull it off and deliver on time and not delay the project and come in on budget, if that makes me a factory, okay, I'll take it, right? But You know what I'm saying? That it's really this mindset of like, well, if I'm a designer, I must sit in a dark corner, smoke cigarettes, and drink coffee, and then I'll come up with good ideas. And if you're wearing a white shirt, and that you're not a designer. I mean, all those silly paradigms that we have all been exposed to in terms of our firms being classified as one or the other. At the end of it, Arun, what you're doing is work that is bespoken. It's not like you created a project in China and then pasted it here, right? It's so I share your uh, disgust at being called a factory.
No,
So,
but it's okay. Now we can be called a design factory, and I love that. So Abhi, I must thank you for that comment. And then, in a very competitive interview process, which was global, we got awarded Microsoft in Hyderabad, and that became the other thing. This is a big deal, really big deal. And this is one part of the campus, and we continue to be engaged with this client all the way through over the years. So phase one, phase two, phase three. I must tell you, SAP Labs campus in Bangalore is their largest outside of their headquarters in Europe. Microsoft's campus in Hyderabad is their largest outside of Redmond. So we are not talking big guys here, and they are seeing the value of what solutions we are providing. And yes, absolutely, Abhay, all bespoke. Some aspects that are already being taken care of is very, very, very sensitive to building orientations, use of materials, contextual, how much of layer we can cut out, deep parasol roofs. All of that we are exploring here, literally intuitively, not keeping in mind some platinum or gold ratings. These were not there, though this building ultimately did get a platinum, a gold rating, I remember. But also working in the landscape architects, making sure that the whole thing is not seen as a building on a site. It's a collective environment, and we do interiors as well. So working from inside out, exploring efficiencies, looking at per square foot, per seat, how the cores can be done, how the vertical circulation moves, all of that. So it became a very wholesome kind of an experience. And we at RSP also have engineering in-house. So the MEP engineers and what we can do, we explored the possibilities of removing the air handlers from the floors and having them in the undercroft of the building as well as on the roof, and then circulating the air in that fashion. So all of this happening around us, and what is spurring us as we grow is the IT growth that was happening around us. But as it typically happens, we'll go to the next one. So Steve Ballmer stood here and dedicated the phase one of the Microsoft campus to all Microsoft professionals, typically. So it's an amphitheater setting, leads on to meeting rooms and so on and so forth. But why this slide is important is that we converted what ended up as we excavated as a deep sinkhole in the site into an amphitheater. But you can see that outside on both sides of the buildings are these shading devices. And there also you can walk on the horizontal ledges there and clean. So we are not thinking just we are doing a building and getting out. We are thinking of how you're going to maintain it, how you're going to take it forward. We don't want to have people pulling blinds down. How do you get modulate light inside? And Abhay, this is all very important because light is what you sculpt. And we are working with natural light to see how that happens. So, okay, we'll go to the next one. And in my train of thought, so while we are doing all this IT work and campuses, as you will see in the next slide, we now come to a project called Shanti Niketan, which is a project, one of the largest developers in the country now. And it became a mixed-use residential township, 105 acres. Amazing story here because this building that you see here, each floor plate is 5 acres. Now we are at that point in the Bangalore story.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So 5 acres for our audience would be 22,000 square meters, which is about 225,000 square feet. So each floor plate is about 250,000 square feet. Just wanted to interject there and add the conversion for our audience, our international audience. Back to you, sir.
Yeah. For that, thank you for that. And why are we doing mega floor plate there? And we've been conscious that it can be a huge scale. So we've given it a shape, which is a crescent. So you do not read the bulk. We've pixelated the facade so you don't read some harshness there. But why are we doing this? And the reason we are doing it is now it's BPO time. It's large floor plates are the need of the hour. And this waxes, you must remember this. So just to give you a metric, so this is about 220,000 square feet. The typical floor plate today is between 40,000 square feet. They can also about 30,000 square feet to about 60,000 square feet. So it's gone back to smaller sizes because there's appreciation for central cores getting more natural light in. But on developer projects, the need of the hour that those days was large floor plates. Okay. But this is one part of it. Behind it is this huge township, which has got 7 million square feet of residential. It's got a hotel in here, Sheraton, and it's got one of the finest malls. So now what has happened is that we have moved away from just doing ID work, and now we are doing large scale residential townships, and then we repeat them. So the practice is now growing, and it's not only growing in Bangalore, it's growing in various cities. Next one.
And for our guests, a BPO is a business process outsourcing. So that's also what you would call call center. When you call Microsoft or whoever and the call goes to Bangalore, that's where they needed the big plates. So back to you. Thank you.
Looks like a factory in the inside. That word. And then malls. Next one. Institutional projects. This is in Goa for the Bhalla Institute. Next one.
So can we just wait for a quick second on the previous one? It's really interesting that, I mean, if you start looking at the architectural responses, right? And I think that's where your corporate paradigm and your design studio analytical approach come to the forefront, because you're not, like if there was like a Khan or a Corbusier or even a Correa, Charles Correa designing Raj Raval, their styles are all the same for, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a museum or a residence or, their commonalities. But what you're able to do, which I find really fascinating, is that you could go from this style of vernacular architecture for Goa to the high rises and the ITPLs and the SAPs and the thing that you did for Shanti Niketan. So the question that I wish to ask or pose is, in your responses, right, you are clearly driven by context. And I should also add that, having done a few competitions with you, that we also have a different style for the reverential buildings that, you and I have collaborated on. So the question I would wish to pose is that, in the definition of a corporate paradigm, but still a design studio, do you think this model would be repeated by many firms? Because you're really responding to the context, not your ego, but to the context. There's an architectural ego that we all have, right? It's like, no, I want to do it like this. But you're really responsive to your client and your context and the set of parameters that you're inheriting from the project. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, if you would.
So we are multilingual, like true Indians, and India's vast country, we are multilingual. We have a philosophy that underpins everything, but it doesn't mean that we get jacketed into a particular style or idiom. Number one, yes, we are completely contextual. Number three, we believe in collaborating with the client to the nth. So we think it's a dialogue, and we respect the fact that the money is the client's. So they are the ones who's bankrolling the project. Right. And we are never disrespectful of that or never oblivious of that. That's a very, very important part for us. We always believe that projects should be on budget and on time. Right. And now this is corporate culture. That's the corporate part of it. Now the creative part of it is, that's why we use the word studio. And we have multi-teams. So we have, so if you were Abhay, a client, and you came to us, and so there are two ways to look at it. So one, we'll say, okay, so we would marry you to a particular designer who we believe that there will be a lot of synergy between you and that designer. Or we would not do that. And we'll say, okay, we're going to come multi-pronged. So we're going to do a ideas share simultaneously within the same time and come up with a bunch of ideas using our various design teams. You have to give me a pause. I live near an airfield. I just got to just give me a pause. Yeah.
No worries. So while Arun fixes the sound from the airfield, which is close to where he is, he's also working from home because of the lockdown in Bangalore because of COVID. So,
7 o'clock
yeah,
curfew, 7 o'clock curfew, Abhay. So I'm
yeah,
not
7 o'clock curfew.
7 p.m. curfew. Okay.
So, yep.
Sorry, I'm back.
No,
So yes, context. Yes, closely working with the client group or the clients, trying to interpret what they want. At the same time, not losing sight of the fact that they hired us to use our best judgment to produce the best solution for them. So it's participatory. So it's corporate because of respect for certain systems procedures. It
right.
is studio because of the creative aspects. And yes, absolutely contextual. No two ways about it.
That's fantastic. And I think um, it almost goes towards the noble task of architect being a facilitator. If we go back to definitions written, whether it is in Vastu Shastra or by Leonardo da Vinci, that there is that whole concept of an architect being able to embrace the multiple disciplines that go into making true architecture. And I see, in my interpretation is that you are facilitating a beautiful confluence of the multi-pronged approach that you're saying, that you come in, you do a design charrette, you like put your ideas together, and then you're coming up with responses which are bespoken for the client, for the context, for the climate, and in that facilitating good design, great design, right? As against dictating, saying, what, I don't care what the context is. I want the building to look like this. I want it to, have a little spire on the top, etc. So it's kind of refreshing to see that kind of modality being played out, not at a small theoretical scale, but at this practical scale of, at the scale of practically implementing it. So kudos on that, because this is really great. Thanks, Aaron. It's back to you.
So we'll keep moving. And then while all this is happening in various parts of the world, we also not lost sight of the fact that we started off with large campus developments. But it's not that these campus developments were just restricted or are restricted to multinationals and large Indian software companies and finance companies. We've done a lot of campuses for those as well. But now it goes to corporate developers, like this one is for the Embassy Group next to the golf course in Bangalore. And this project, as you can read from the slides, has the best of names as the tenants or the leaseholders within this particular campus, and enjoys high rentals as well. So now we are working or using our expertise of what we understand about the IT industry and being able to service our developer clients as well. So it's not that ours is a practice that is just restricted to corporates from the IT field or the finance field or the institutional side, but it also has a lot of work we have done with developers now actually across the country. And then every once in a while, those residential townships that keep happening as well. So this is a project very interesting, just finished pre-COVID last year, just short of last year. And every single apartment and villa in this very large project, nearly 100-acre project, all sold. So now what is important is we when we work with developers, we do understand the requirements of the developers from the standpoint that it's not what they love doing, and it's also a business. So we have to understand. Now, when you work with a corporate or a particular campus client, we understand their requirements. When you work with a developer, particularly on the residential side, we have to understand what a large volume of people might be wanting at that point. Again, the approach is collaborative. We work with their marketing teams, with the sales teams, the right product, the right mix. But it's not a simple exercise of just going ahead and designing it. There are a lot of discussions on the program. There are a lot of discussions on what can be the brief and what can be the mix that will be a sellable mix downline. So now it's not social context that one has to be clued on in. Otherwise, you end up doing something that might not be doing that well. Might be beautiful, but might not do great sales. So this project is up here because it's been a great success in that. Okay, next one. And we'll move quickly now. So then hotels as well. So the Oberoi Gurgaon is our project where both Mr. Oberoi as well as Mr. Badal, who was then Chief Minister, they were clients to us. the Bharat's property. So keep going. To the JD, joint development. Keep going. I'm not getting into details. And then responding to climate and context, you said this project is for a software company called Hexaware, one of the large software companies in India, and clear response to climate. So the walls which have the smaller openings are the ones that are the harsher sun, attracting harsher sun. The reason the stone is there is because it's a sandstone, very consistent with the landscape around it, and then yet a very modern campus. When myself and my team ended up there for the inauguration of this campus, huge standing ovation because the occupants just love this place, and that I think is a great feeling when the design gets loved by the people who are inside it. Because ultimately, what are we designing? We're designing environments and spaces for people to be happy about, work efficiently in, and that is all that one achieves on this planet. So I think it was a great feeling for us and this particular project. Okay, keep going. Yeah, this is for the Interglobe, which is the holding company for Indigo Airlines, and their brief was very simple, one page that said they want Zen. So minimal lines, and this building has textures. If you go to the next slide, very unusual office building, as you can see, a little bit of water, pebbles, the landscape interweaves with the building, very interesting spaces inside. Again, this whole thing that we try to explore as far as possible, getting the outside to engage with the inside, and it becomes very pertinent during COVID times, where you can get a feeling of being one with just not being in a claustrophobic, contained environment. I think mentally it's very good to be able to engage on the outside as well.
It's very interesting that you created with the Oberoi project this big, beautiful central space with the pool and the greens, and but it's an outside space, and then in a different style, if you would, right? And then you have this project, which is an inside space which uses water and the elements, but it's on the other side of colors and the Zen experience. I mean, the fact that it's like, mostly in the grayscale and pebbles and water. It's really fascinating how contexts are really driving your responses, right? I mean, with classic example being Oberoi's and what is this called? Interglobe, the Indigo people.
Yeah, and the Bhatia family. I must tell you this, that the Oberoi project is a collaborative exercise with our design studio in Singapore, where my design boss in Singapore was involved, and the main creative element came from there. Whereas this and a lot of other, all the other projects are purely out of here. And we also do cross collaboration. So in our offices, which we call them design hubs and design studios across the planet, we cross pollinate, which means if there are some IT related, which area of specialization that we have, and you have to do a project in China, then the team here gets assigned. And I think that's wonderful. And that's the other joy of having a large international practice. Going across. Yeah, the next one. We'll move quickly now. This is a project with the Lulu Group in Kochi. Great project, but it will become a landmark, one of the tallest in that region. Next one. It's getting completed. Very interesting project under construction for HDFC in Mohali. So Abhay, you and I, Punjabis, this is a little bit home terrain for us. The climate is very harsh there, and it can be extreme weather. So we have cleverly got terraces in a tight site, and they're going to be green. So you can imagine, even in that context, you can spill out. And though this project is visualized way before COVID, it becomes very, very pertinent for the COVID situation today.
Right.
Okay, keep going. Collaborative project with Pycop Freed for Goldman Sachs, and it's being said as one of the best finished commercial office projects in India. Big achievement, because in the Indian it can be challenging to get the right quality, but everyone's very passionate about it. The entire team, and it's a Fortune 500 company, so they were all involved. and great experience building it. But look at it, 3 boxes in a landscape setting. But when you come away, and I'll take you there, the most crafted boxes that you would see, well crafted boxes. So contracting team did a great job. Next one.
Beautiful.
All on completely on BIM. And this is put for you here, Abhay, so you can look at some lights. This is the internal space. Very much, I'm told, most Instagram. Keep going. Light plays such an important part. And then this became a very challenging project for us because Microsoft assigned us for not a very large project, but they wanted the Taj Mahal inside office. Huge challenge. It's all come out well.
The Taj Mahal, but Taj Mahal without the tombs, right?
Without the tombs, but get it in.
No, without the tombs for Mumtaz and Shah Jahan.
Yeah, I thought I'd stand up there. It didn't happen well. They would have kind of entombed me there. It worked out well. Let's go forward.
Contractor. Who's lying here? It's a general contractor.
Project for ITC, and maybe that's this. Let's go forward. Let's keep going forward, please.
This is a really interesting project. Can you go back? I think I know this project. It's the one which is with the continuous stare on the. Can you go back?
Yeah. So this is a collaborative project. Atkins did the initial work, and then we were assigned, and now we're doing in this way, and we keep doing it more. It's got this huge staircase on the outside, and it's a platinum project. So very solid climate response. Go forward. We'll come to the last set slide. So the next one is a recent project. It was a design proposal for American Express in Gurgaon, and this one is for Bangalore. So as you see, the styles have been changing. So if you went back now, and we don't want you to go back and look at the initial slides, radical change being off the time, but more greenery coming in, more terraces coming in, more contemporary styling coming in. And that's how it is. Internationalism is in. And sometimes people say, oh, why do you guys do so much glass? Well, we don't do so much glass. We use glass where it is important. I think glass is a great material. So we work with a diverse palette, and we work in context. We work with the client in a collaborative mode, and we work with great consultants and engineers and specialists like you, Abhay, to make sure that the magic happens. And that's where it is. So that's a little bit of a short journey.
Yes.
Work that we have been doing.
Arun, there are so many questions to ask because of the intricacy of the work and the diversity of the work. But I will start with a few questions that have come into me in direct messaging. So I'll just start with one that is, well, there are two questions that I would like to ask, and then there are other questions that have come in. But let me be a little selfish and ask my questions first. First is about the COVID. And how you guys have been faring. And, it's a big practice. It's many cities, but there's also the thing that work has pretty much come to a standstill, right? For many months now. So how are you coping? How are you guys doing? How is everything with this crazy COVID situation?
So thank you so much. And you know the pain yourself. You went through COVID, I know, last year, and you know how the disease can do for you. Nobody can claim that they are insulated from it. We were fortunate in the first time around that we did not have too many cases, but the second wave, as everyone knows, hit India very badly. We were not anticipating it, and we were not well prepared for it. So like others, we had 10%, nearly 40 people of afflicted, and 3-4 in some serious and precarious situations. Thankfully, all have pulled through, and families have pulled through. We still have issues. We have this is ongoing. It's not done and dusted. So we've gone and other than the fact that we ourselves have tried to contribute to the ecosystem by doing whatever help we can provide for our employees. Of course, we provided all the help that is required, including maintaining oxygen cylinders, concentrators, so on and so forth. So from the health perspective, bad. We're just being able to now pull back. From the economic perspective, worse, because the Q4, the first 3 months of this year, business had started coming back in a very, very strong manner. But all the projects had to then naturally go slow and be put on hold. And that's been the story that's unfolding across India. But we are very, very sure. In fact, I am quite sure that the next 3 months we're going to see a ramp up back again. There is too much to be done and accomplished that can stay on hold. But with necessary precautions, and let's hope we don't hit another blip, we should strongly be back in. And I want to keep an optimistic frame, and I'm sure that's the need of the hour. We have to stop agonizing and facing all these mental possibilities. It hits us, we'll see what we do.
Right.
All our staff is now vaccinated. Much of India is getting vaccinated. I've been on construction sites yesterday, and I find full steam ahead. So the news that is now, you can take it, trickling in from our end, is that it's going to be okay. Take a little time, but you're going to be okay.
That's really good to know. That's really good to hear as well. And keep shining. We wish you all the best. I know it's, I mean, with a studio that big, just juggling all the balls is not easy, you know. And so all the best for that. The next question, which I'm just reading off what I'm getting here, is the nucleus of your practice and its design, design, you know, that design is paramount. How do you keep that flavor? How do you keep that intent through the multiple offices? You know, so that your vision and your, you know, team in Singapore and your design leaders, how do they keep the spirit of innovation and design, you know, like a design studio, active?
So,
Yeah.
no, great question, whoever asked it. But what we saw through COVID, COVID kind of brought it forth in the forefront that we can communicate irrespective of geography. So that's the first one. Irrespective of where you are, like we are today, meeting across the planet, multiple locations,
Right.
and having a conversation as if I was sitting in your living room and having a chat with you. So that's one. Now, so there are 2-3 aspects. So how do we carry the the entire idiom or the language or the philosophy we have across internationally? So we do have earlier we used to have connects, physical connects in various locations, with offices taking turns to host and doing workshop sessions, not only at the top level but also at the middle level, so that the designers can synergize and share thoughts, because that's the strength of a large practice. And now, ever since COVID has hit, virtually, those have been organized. But that's at the international scale. At the national scale, which is our campus here, we have done some basic stuff, which means all our design leads and prominent office leaders and all that are people who literally incubated at Bangalore, incubated and then go on to take leadership roles. But we haven't limited ourselves only to the people that we hired maybe so many years back. We do international hiring as well, and we seed our practice with newer ideas and professionals. Our Mumbai head, for example, very experienced gentleman, is an ex Foster Partners, and so when he comes in, he does spend a lot of time with us. We learn from him in Bangalore, and he learns from us, and we carry the torch forward. So it's a method of personal connects nowadays. Unfortunately, more of virtual connects, to make sure that basic philosophies and what the firm stands for just keeps getting translated across locations.
That's
a lot of
fantastic.
reviews, a lot of discussions. Yeah.
Yeah. So one last question. Your future plans. What is that one sector that I mean, you've done such diverse work, but what is that one sector that you still really, really want to do down the road in the near future?
What I want to do might not happen. What I would love to do is get into museums or get into more of art spaces, showcase spaces. I do hope that at some point somebody would be kind enough to consider us. That will be great, because we have some greater ideas around that, but we haven't done any museum in India as yet, and we would need a patron to come and kind of bless us with that project. That'll be great if that happens. Whereas other sectors are concerned, I missed out a few. We are strong in industrial design as well, designing large industries. So those will happen. Those are large scale. But from a smaller crafting side, that's one. The second is what you and I are collaborating on, the referential spaces. And that, as I think, as I get older, it starts making more meaning and sense. So if we can, if we can do some of that, we are doing a great project together, Abhay, but let's hope that some others come through as well. So that's the idea.
They definitely will, because I think the world is ready for the modern interpretation of ancient wisdoms, you know, and through technology and modern typology. So I'm really looking forward to how this evolves for you, Arun. And again, on behalf of our guests, on behalf of our audience, we are very thankful for you taking the time out and being with us for a fantastic conversation, as I'd anticipated. And it's just really wonderful to, I know we can't really meet in person right now, but it's really wonderful to be able to at least spend some time doing this with you. So thank you, Arun.
Absolute pleasure, Abhay, and so nice of you to think of me and invite me. Always a pleasure interacting with you, as I said, and look forward to many more. And quickly, we should meet in person. Maybe I'll swing by.
Yeah, why don't you swing by? That's, you're welcome. As we
Yeah.
say in Punjabi, ji ayanu, you know.
Haan ji.
So, and on that note, just a quick note about our next speaker that is in 2 weeks is another fantastic architect, designer from New Delhi. His name is Amrish Arora. And we're going to have hopefully another uplifting, insightful discussion. And please do join us for that. Again, thank you all for your support. As I said earlier, we have reached 900 subscribers, and we are very thankful for all of you who keep sending us your beautiful feedback and comments. I'm also want to extend a word of thanks to our producer, Justin Mensch, and his team. And on that note, have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.